Welcome everybody to the HVAC-Chicks radio show. We're doing episode 4, Entering the Trades. We're now going to welcome Mac and Josh, who are going to be doing our host.
Hello.
What's up?
Hey guys, welcome. So introduce yourselves and let's start this thing off of entering the trade.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, Mac. I'll let you go first.
Sure. My name is Mac. One word, just like Prince, not as handsome or as talented. And I do HVAC. From time to time, HVAC does me pretty much. I'm a instructor in Dallas, Texas, and I also work for, how do I word this? A manufacturer.
Lost you there for a second, Mac. You work for who?
Sorry. I work as a trade school instructor here in the Dallas, Texas market, where I teach entry-level HVAC students. And then I also work for a manufacturer in the research and development lab, their heating lab up here in Dallas, Texas. I don't want to say which manufacturer.
Yeah, we know.
Okay. They actually made me sign paperwork about that. So
I'm Josh Abraham.
Crazy,
I run Abraham Heating and Air. I'm a manager slash co-owner. I do service, installs, estimating, everything you can think of in the residential and light commercial HVAC portion in Omaha, Nebraska.
All right. So Josh, how did you enter the trade?
I got started when I was about 8 years old. My dad's been doing this since the late 70s. So I used to go on service calls with him when he'd get a late night service call, going to a single woman's house or just a house that he didn't think was appropriate for him to go by himself. So he'd drag me with him, grab tools, and just make sure there was no he said, she said type of situations. And just kind of got going with that from the age of 8 and rolling with it.
What about you, Mac? How'd you get into the trade?
Well, by accident. To be honest, I was living in Austin, Texas, and I moved back home to Waco, Texas, and I had an unemployment check, 32 years old, right before my 32nd birthday, and Craigslist was a thing still. This was 2017, and I took the unemployment check and some encouragement from a couple family members, and I picked the trade. And I was this close to being a welder because I had done welding in shop class in middle school. And at the last minute, picked HVAC and kind of went in and stuck. And I've been doing it ever since. It's the last thing I've ever done was HVAC.
Yeah, I started out as a mechanic doing automotive work for dealerships, and I was just going to school for it. And a buddy of mine said, "Hey, man, I really think you'd be good at this trade." So I started HVAC. I started as a helper doing new construction, and it's just gone up there ever since, progressing and crafting my trade as I go.
Yeah,
that was back in '99.
I look back and reflect at it. I've kind of always tinkered with stuff, if that makes sense. We're putting together stereo equipment or taking speakers out of my uncle's trunks and putting them into my room to listen to music. I kind of always just kind of put stuff together. And while I'm thinking about it, Texas State Technical College, Waco, Texas, I just wanted to say hello to them. That's where I went to school.
Yeah, I didn't do any schooling. I just I've always been naturally mechanically inclined, unlike my dad, who has no clue, no mechanical skills whatsoever. Took him a lot harder, made it a lot harder for him to learn that stuff than it did me. I'm more like both my grandfathers were. So it comes very easy.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. It came easy for you, because for me, this craft continues to humble me. So nothing's been easy about it. even to this point, nothing's been easy.
Yeah, our trade is not. So, Mac, how long have you been in the field?
8 years total now.
Josh?
I've been back full time for 6 years, but like I said, I've been off and on since I was a little kid. So off and on for 42 years.
I got 26, with 4 of those being a inspector with the local jurisdiction here. I crossed over to the dark side and became an inspector.
Like new home construction inspector kind
Yep,
of thing.
I did residential, commercial, mechanical, gas, and plumbing inspections.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
So
Did that keep you pretty busy?
The nice thing about government work, it was you did your inspections and you just kind of did whatever for the rest of the day. So it kept you busy, and if guys were out, you stayed out in the field longer doing more inspections. But yeah, I enjoyed doing it. Less stress on my body.
I always enjoyed the conversations that I would have with the inspectors when I would cross paths with them in residential HVAC.
Yeah, some inspectors can be weird, and some can be great.
Studying that. I thought about studying that because every time I would ask a question to one inspector in the same county, I would get different answers each time. So it's like, man, how do I know what to do if they don't give a consistent answer? Like,
yeah.
It's weird.
So, what would y'all recommend? Would you recommend going to school or going to field training only, or both?
Well, for me, I'd say you need it every way you can get it. You only get better at doing HVAC kind of by one way, which is by doing HVAC all the time. And I think that there's components to both of those ways of learning. There's pieces of those that are beneficial to you. So I think that you probably should do both, and it probably should be difficult, and you probably should go to school, and you probably should get a job with somebody who allows you to work on the side with them or in addition to school, because I think they go hand in hand. One benefits the other. However, I've been around some people who have done it one way, and honestly, all you have to do is secure the job in the field. And once you're in there, it's up to you to prove yourself, period. School gives you a better foundation. And if you go to a program with an associate's degree, it gives you a piece of paper that, regardless of what happens at the job in the craft, the paper goes with you wherever you go. And so if I had to pick one, which I won't because I've done both, but if I had to, given that I'm a very aggressive, educated Hispanic male with associate's degrees, I advocate for education every time because nobody can take that from me. They can take my jobs from me, but they can't take the degrees from me. So hope that helps.
Yep. What about you, Josh?
I think it's based on you yourself. Like, I hate school. I'll never do it. I learned much better, easier, hands-on with my dad, and then listening to the podcasts and stuff like that. I know how I learn, and that's what you got to figure out for you. How do you learn the best? Do you learn better going to school, taking the classes, and then interning with somebody, or just diving in and being fed to the wolves and just sink or swim? Just kind of figure it out that way. I personally, I love to just jump in and figure it out. So I think but it's got to be based on you. You have to know how you learn what's best for you. Nobody else can cut out for you.
Yeah, I know. We have 3 semesters where I'm at, but I took first semester, left took a year off, came back working for another company again, same company I took first year with, took my second and third year. And then after I finished third year, that went back in teaching, but I wanted to get out of installs and more into service. So what I did, I rode with guys I knew at work on the weekends, shadowing them, watching them, and I wasn't getting paid. I was doing this to progress my career and progress my skill trade. and I would ride with them on the weekends until I got to the point where I felt comfortable running the call, and I'm like, hey, I'll run the call. You sit in the truck, and if I need you, I'll call you. So that's what we did. They would get paid to run the call. I'd be working for free, but I gained dramatic amount of knowledge by doing that for 2 months, to where they were able to go up to the owners with me and say, hey, put him in service. He is a damn good service tech. And they're like, well, how do you know? And we told them what we did. So I got moved into service within 3 years of being in the trade, on call, running calls after doing installs.
That's nice. That was nice of them to do that with you.
And and I tell people when I was teaching, like, look, one of the guys who's on service and you want to learn more, get with them on the weekends, man. Just ride with them for a day. When you're busy, go with them and say, hey, can I ride with you and learn some? All you're doing is progressing your trade and your skill level, and it shows the owners of the company you want to learn. And one thing people don't understand about our trade is, if you get in with a company, that company will pay for you to go to school, so you don't have a debt for training. You don't have thousands upon thousands of dollars of educational costs.
That's his right.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get basically trained for free.
Yeah, you got a good point, man. Some of these companies will pay you to go to school, even if they don't. I think at some point the game rewards you for what you put into the game or the craft. So if a company's paying you to learn, that's awesome. That's more than I deserve, right? At some point, though, you're going to get out what you put in. So nonstop studying, nonstop pursuit of getting better, never backing down, or what I call it is we don't turn down anything, right? Just whatever it is, we're gonna, even if I don't know it, I'm gonna sell you on the idea that I do, and then I'm gonna go study when you get out of the room.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, I will say this: every state has trade schools or some sort of trade schools where you're at. It's just a matter of going through and finding the right one that fits you or whatever the company sends you to. I know there are some that are not great in my area and some that are. I'm not sure about y'all, how y'all's areas is, how many trade schools y'all have in your area.
I went to school at one. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. I can only think of 2 in my area, and I don't know much about them. There's some couple hours away. They're supposed to be better, but I know based on like my son who went to one a couple hours away, they're still teaching all old school stuff. They're not teaching any of the new stuff. They're not going over digital gauges. They're not doing any of the new technical stuff. They're still teaching stuff that my dad was learning in the 70s, which does not work. I mean, we're stuck. That's the one thing. That's why, like, I get with Jen and different people about coming out here to Omaha, because we're stuck in the middle of the country. We get nothing. We're stuck in the Stone Ages. We're years behind the East Coast and the West Coast for everything. So I keep trying to push getting the technology out here, getting the stuff here, bringing it to town so that we can have, be more competitive and more knowledgeable like everybody else on the East Coast and down south, west. We're just stuck. We're learning stuff from the 70s. It's not relevant anymore. I mean, the basic concept of what I learned when I was 8 to install and do a service call is still kind of there, but the technology to do it is different. There's now a science. Back then, it wasn't science. We didn't know what we know now. And it's a completely different animal. So the schools just around here are not very good.
I want to try to be very careful about my words because I've had an experience with a trade school that I was working at. First of all, I love trade schools. Texas State Technical College in Waco is where I went, and that trade school saved my life. And the people I met there, outstanding. That's an outstanding institution. Institution that I used to work for. What I found out is, hey, there's corporate stuff, man, that So I would advise anybody that is considering trade school, you need to focus more on who your instructors are going to be and whether you can, basically, if you can learn from them. What I've experienced is that there are some institutions that uh, would prefer a study hall or would prefer that let me be fair. COVID came along and changed the way that we do school. Instead
Yeah.
of a teacher being present, we put students from the high school age up, and we put them in front of laptops to do self-paced learning. Corporate trade schools are also a victim of COVID in that way. And I'll leave it there where people can read between the lines. So you need to find out who your instructors are going to be at these trade schools, and do you vibe with them? Are you going to learn from them? And ask people about them, because that's the best way to judge a school. Is you ask the customer what they think about the people that are delivering the product. So be
This,
real
this,
cautious about that, because what I found in my time also in this market is there are a lot of institutions that pop up real quick. They're here and we'll get you an HVAC in 3 weeks, and you got to be careful because sometimes you end up overpaying for a EPA test. Is basically what you're doing.
yeah.
And
I know one
paying
thing with that reputation.
$10,000.
Yeah, you got to have that reputation, and if you've been in the like you and I both have been in the classroom teaching and stuff, Mac. I know when I came back to teach
Mhm.
11, 12 years ago or so, the program was there was no program. I had to rebuild that thing, and I rebuilt it to the top workforce program in our area, and they're like the third in the state. And people were coming to us trying to figure out how we were doing this so well. Um, we had a line. We
That's cool,
had
man.
a line of contractors out the door sending their employees for training. Unfortunately, my circumstances changed for the way administration decided they didn't like things that were being done, and they let people go. It's you have a reputation as an instructor with that. I know it's just you got, and with school, I will say this. I know, Josh, you talk about they're still teaching old stuff out there in Nebraska. The textbooks I had were from Cengage. And even though we haven't seen a natural vent draft furnace, everything we deal with is either inducer motors. We're still learning about them in the books. The books have not caught up with the times, unfortunately. And that is a big problem in our industry with trade schools. If the books haven't caught up, they're not going to learn that new stuff. You have to bridge that gap.
I'd be curious. I don't know the inner workings of a HVAC program on a corporate level. I know it from being an instructor in it, and the textbooks I think are fine. It's just whether or not the programs are investing the money into the textbooks that are out there.
Yeah,
because I just I've only been in the education part for a little over a year now. I see plenty of materials out there. I mean, they're trying to give them away. And the corporate institution that I work for, man, it was hard to get them to buy stuff. Very hard. You can say whatever you want about this, that, or whatever, but the bottom line was when requests for materials would go up, that's where the request for materials would go to pass away.
yeah.
They wouldn't come back down. So is it the books, and is it the knowledge, and is it the materials, or is it the institution being unwilling to part with some of the funds for that?
Yeah. Well, that's their problem. So, all right, y'all. We'll be back in a minute. We're back in a minute for a word from our sponsors.
.207customs.com is your hub for all your HVA-Chicks merch needs. If you guys are looking for a hat, a shirt with the HVA-Chicks logo, a tumbler, HVA-Chicks radio show, you name it, it's on 207customs.com. Use code HVAC10 at checkout. If you're looking for quality, high-performance HVAC installation and service, reach out to Abraham Heating and Air. You can go to their website at abrahamheatingandair.com and book an appointment online. They are one of the best companies out there. They fully support HVA-Chicks Coalition and the HVA-Chicks radio show, and they are truly the place where quality meets comfort.
Welcome back. So let's get back to that question I wanted to ask that popped up. Do you think new trades people should learn analog before digital? Me personally, yes. Even though you have the digital, I feel that students should learn where the trade came from, some of the backings a little bit. You know, the old beat and swedge versus jumping right into power tools that swedge and glare for you. I think they should learn it. What about you, Josh?
Well, I'm kind of, I don't know. I think more let them learn the digital because that's where we're at. My son, on the other hand, loves analog gauges. And I know a lot of people in my market are still using analog gauges. They don't sell a lot of the test fill and field piece and stuff like that with the wireless probes. But I see, I used them. I came up with them. And I think it's easier and makes more sense training on what we're using now and what is the future versus worrying about learning analog gauges. Because how often do we really use them? I mean, is that just because the old guys use them? And old guys, I am the old guy. I'm probably the oldest one sitting here right now. But I got my 76-year-old dad to stop using analog gauges and use digital gauges. So if that old dude's going to do it, and we're moving that way with everything, I don't see why we need to go backwards. That's part of our problem is keep looking backwards. We need to be looking forward, not straight ahead, not right now, but down the road. So I don't think you really need to learn them. Personally, I know a lot of people like them, but
I tend to agree. I tend to agree with our guest host, the cat. You gotta. It's both. Why does it have to be one or the other? I'll give you an example. I'm a digital person as far as that's concerned. I use Testo Pro. Shout out to Testo. I love you. But from an education standpoint, there are so many things that I can teach you with a set of analog gauges that for a person that's brand new in the trade, it's valuable, right? I get to show you with an analog gauge set all about your hoses. I get to show you maintenance on those hoses, how to care for them. I get to show you how to read an analog gauge. I get to show you how to care for an analog gauge. Why are we using an analog gauge? We can do so many things without even touching refrigerants at that point, because if they're brand new to the trade, they're not licensed yet. We can do things with nitrogen. We can pressurize tanks. I can go on and on and on. It can be both. It doesn't have to be one or the other, because some of these lessons from an education standpoint, I need you to be students to be in a position where you trust my knowledge base and you also to submit to what I'm telling you, right? So it's not that, like, I want you in a habit of doing what you're told and following instructions step by step and hitting certain metrics and doing things safely. And to me, the analog way it kind of helps to build by using the analog gauges that way. Also, I operate in a market down here in Texas where the heat is a real problem. So if you're stashing your Testo products or whatever manufacturer products in the trunk, and something happens with the battery in the product, that rare instance where the battery explodes, now you've lost your digital set. What you gonna do? Because the one thing that you cannot do is you can't go tell my customer, hey, my tool broke, I can't do my job, I gotta come back. No, you can't tell them that. Okay. So the analog that's stashed in the back of your van, it's there for an emergency too. But that tool is as useless as a paperclip if you don't know how to use it.
Yep.
Right?
I've got 3 sets of gauges on my truck. I could actually have 4 sets if I wanted it, but
yeah,
because sometimes I go to equipment that's got 4 or 5 compressors in there, and I got to take pressure readings on all of them at the same time on full load, and you really can't do that off of just one set of gauges. So I have multiple sets of gauges. When we start messing with those 20-ton systems with 4 compressors, I'll throw on all my gauges, and I got one manifold head I use for when I'm checking ice machines. I'll put on there as well. So technically, I got 4 gauges. But yeah, so that's going to lead us to our next thing: advice for people entering the field. What advice would you give them? The biggest thing I was told, because of my ADHD and how hyper I am and everything else, was you've got 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 1 mouth. Use them in proportion. And I never got that until later on in life. That means sit down, listen, and think before you speak.
That's a good one. I like that.
So what you got, Mac? What advice do you have for entering techs? That's good.
Are you in or are you out? You cannot be both. What I mean by that is jump. Okay. As far as coming into the trade, the way that the trade is in its current state, hey, we just need you to show up on time and we need you to have a good attitude. If you have those 2 things, and are you coachable, you've done enough. So if you kind of always make sure that you are willing to learn, that you are willing to listen, and you're willing to sign up to get your behind kicked a lot and humbled frequently, if you are comfortable with that, that's enough. You will find somebody who recognizes those traits and will put their arm around you and take care of you. We're not all these rough, rugged jerks. Okay. So you have to keep yourself in a positive headspace and stay with it.
What you got, Josh?
I'm gonna touch on the analog gauges real quick before I answer it.
Go for it.
Look at the younger generation coming in that are becoming techs or installers or whatnot. They can't read a clock with numbers on it. They have to have all digital.
True.
Why would we go backwards and teach them something they don't even know how to read when you do a clock? They can't tell you time with that. The other part of it is when you're doing your leak test, you don't get that instant gratification on a very slow, minor, teeny, tiny little leak that goes at 1/10. And it takes an hour for you to get 1 PSI out of it for when you have a leak. So that's the other reason why I'm not a big fan of the teaching the analog gauges. But for advice for techs getting in, I agree with both of you. Is this a job or is this a career? And then if it's a career, you got to be all in, and you've got to sit back and learn go through all the grunt work and learn from everybody that you can get your hands on. I've been doing this, like I said, off and on for 42 years. I sit and listen to the podcast. I call Jennifer when I have problems. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to find somebody to get better by. If you're going to jump into this, you can make 6 figures if you try. All you got to do is put forth the effort. You get as much as you put in. So if you're going to get into it, jump all in and just give it everything you got. Pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're never willing to stop learning. Yeah. I mean, we're always learning. I mean, I've been doing this for 26 years. My background's been residential, light commercial. I've learned more about big 20-ton, 25-ton systems since I've been where I'm at now. And the question was asked to us, would you choose between service and installs? And, me personally, if you're going to be entering into the trade, I feel that you should learn all parts of this. Start as a helper, installer, maintenance, service. You should be able to see the bigger picture, because I got one of the guys I work with. He went straight to service, didn't learn the install side, didn't learn duct work, didn't understand that stuff. And he'll get on jobs, he'll call me up and like, hey, I've got this going on. He doesn't understand the airflow side of it because he was straight service and never learned install side. I think the best service tech, me personally, my opinion, is someone who has started out as a helper and learned how the system's installed, how it's put together, how it ran, how it started up, and everything before you start learning how to diagnose it. And I think starting at the big bottom and working your way up is the best way to learn this trade.
Yeah, I was thrown into service work right out of school before I was ready. So I had to double back into installs as a multi-year technician, and I just part of me gets my mind blown that we put the most important thing, which is install, and we give it to our newest people in our buildings who don't really grasp how important what they're doing is at that point. So I'm kind of torn on that, right? Do you go service and blah blah blah, or do you go install? Obviously, installs where you should probably cut your teeth, but we shouldn't. The way we do it now, where we just kind of throw you out there with some guy who's done it for 6 months, that's not fair to you either. So, I don't know. All right, I'll pick one. You should go the install route, and you should get familiar with the equipment and how to use your tools and things of that nature. You should. That would be the best spot for most everybody.
All right, what you got, Josh?
So I'm going to go back to the thing I said earlier. You got to know yourself, what you like. I hate service. Absolutely hate it. By the time I was 12, I could tear out and install a system by myself. Okay. So that was my love. Like, I love to build things. I love to destroy things. So tearing out and putting back in and seeing this beautiful piece of artwork made my day. Going on 12 hours of service calls made my life miserable because it's so slow and mundane and dumb, and you got to think. I don't like to think. I like to go. That being said, when I came back in 2017 part-time and then back full-time in 2019, I had to become a better service tech because I was running both. And then when my dad got sick and I took over everything, I was forced to do service. Now, service, I don't even think. It's just all the processes are in place. I don't have to think. I just go. So now it's just like doing installs. I'm thinking process. It's just breaking down how the system works. I think you got to figure out what's best for you. I know guys that started out in service that are phenomenal installers and vice versa. I know service guys that suck as installers, but you'll understand the system if you go both routes. And I saw somebody mention that they worked for a company that they didn't want to let you do both. My plan for my company, I want rotating every other week. You're either going to do service or installs because you need to know both, but you also need to have your body for a long time. I'm 50. I've had lung cancer. I'm missing half a lung, busted up knees, neck, shoulder, back, you name it. I've got it. And I've still got 25, 30 years to go. So to make it easier on yourself, find a place that'll let you go both ways. And if you can't find a place, then pick one that's going to be better for you. But you got to find a way to get your hands dirty on both sides of it and then figure out which one you like most. But I think you start out as just a grunt, just running tools, whether it's running tools on an install or running tools on a service call.
Yep. But, yeah, because I've been, like I said, I've been in all over the trade, just like you have too. Little quick side note on that whole deal. I tore my ACL working for a company. I was playing indoor soccer at almost at 30 years old or so. I was getting in the middle of getting, separated. I had the house, I had bills, and here I am laid up at home with a torn ACL. What am I going to do? So the guy we had hired, the company had working there, he was running a service call, and he was calling me and talking to me. And I'm like, hey, look, this is what the problem is, everything else. And he didn't want to listen to me. So I saw on Facebook the next morning, Mondays officially made me your B from my boss. So I called her up and talked to her about it. And she told me, I told him what to do. I said, let me make a phone call. And I said, this is what I told her. I said, hey, I'm making $18.50 an hour. if I can get this guy to come to work with us, you pay him $850, you pay me 10. He rides with me until I get cleared. So I made a phone call to the kid down the street. I said, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? He goes, going back to Penn Station to go make subs. I said, no, you're not. I said, be at my house at 6 o'clock in the morning. He said, why? I said, you got a job doing HVAC for me, with me. And for 6 months, he rode with me as a service helper, learning the service side, basically because I was not allowed to carry and do certain things because of my leg. And I went back to work. I was able to pay my bills, fortunately. But he got a 6 months crash course in HVAC, and he went from service to installs after he left me. And he, to this day, he loves installs. He loves putting that puzzle together. And I'll go out there and I'll do installs with him, and him and we just roll through in these installs because he rode with me. We know what each other wants. And it's just with me, I'm a sheet metal man. I love to play with sheet metal. I will go in the shop and make sheet metal if I can all day, if my knees and my back would allow me to. But some days you sit there for hours on end walking across a rubber matted floor. By the end of the day, you can barely walk and stand up because your knees and your back are killing you. So it's one of those things that, you choose what part you love. I know guys who went through the high school program. I would come out there back in the day and teach them how to do duct work when they did Habitat for Humanity houses and stuff like that. One guy, he's still in this trade to this day, 20 years later or so, he's still doing installs in sheet metal, and he just loves it every day of the week. That's his niche.
Hey, I can't see the chat, but Mr. Abraham mentioned that somebody in the chat said they work for a company that won't allow you to do both. Yeah, I worked for a company like that too. So I was a service tech, and I switched to the install and startup department because the way I looked at it was, I was like, I wanted to do installs because I wanted to learn, and I had found out that a lot of the service problems I was running into was because of the install. And so I remember having that conversation where I told my supervisor, like, you're not going to stop me from learning installs. What do I have to do installs? Do I need to switch to the install team? That was the answer. So I switched to the install team and did that for a little bit. So
John's spot on with this comment.
Whatever you're comfortable with in the chat, if you're to a point where you realize how important installs are and you want to learn it, then if you have to switch. Take 6 months in the slow season in the winter or something and switch and do installs for a little bit.
Yeah, John. I don't know if you can see that, Mac. John's comment is, biggest thing I was taught as a helper is use intuition and think about the next thing that you or the lead will need next and have it ready for them. It really helps. And that is, yeah.
It's huge. What I do with my guys is the installs don't change. It's just a location, or is it a furnace and AC? So we know for a furnace what we have to have down there. Everything goes downstairs while I'm starting on the furnace, shutting off breakers and all that stuff. By the time I'm done with that, all my equipment is down there. And same with the AC. We have all our recovery stuff. Everything we need is all sitting there. So then I'm not going back and forth. I'm staying focused while he's grabbing everything. And then we're just rolling. Do it in half the time because he doesn't have to think about it. It's already been laid out. We already know the plan. And then all he's doing is learning what I'm doing as I'm going. That way I can spend more time teaching him and slowing down and explaining the process to him easier.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
If you'll be a helpful helper, that's what I tell the students. Be a helpful helper.
Yep. All right. Now we're going to take another quick break for another word from our sponsors.
Cielo Wi-Fi thermostats are the HVA-Chicks choice for all your mini split and conventional split needs. If you're not sure which Wi-Fi thermostat to choose Cielo. Want to kill 99.9% of contagions in commercial and residential spaces without creating ozone? Check out the Air Shield by Revive Air. Thank you, Revive Air, for supporting the HVA-Chicks radio show.
All right. So the next part about this whole deal about entering the trades, the biggest cost of all, tools. I know for a fact if you've been in this trade for more than 10 years, you have at least over $10,000 in tools, of your personal tools invested in your trade. I just tools will, they break, they are expensive, and as the time goes on, we've gone from these really old recovery machines that used to take a probe and screw it into the top of the recovery tank, and it would float, and then when it would get full, it would shut itself off, to now you've got your recovery machines that will shut off after they're done for you, so you don't have to keep going back and checking it, which is really nice. And just we went from the old beat and swedge, for take the old copper, take the little beater and put it in there and just smack it, hit your thumb, knuckles, and everything else. If you ever done a beat and swedge, you know what I'm talking about. To tools, you just put the copper on, hit a trigger, and it just boom, you've got a swedge. So we've gone. And same with the flares. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I had to re-flare using a flare block, trying to get that right height on the copper out of the flare block to make sure I don't mess up my flare. To now, I just put it in a thing, hit a trigger, boom, I've got a perfect flare every time. So tools are expensive. I would say if you're going to start off in this trade, don't go buy the most expensive tools out there, but you're only as good as the tools you have. Even though people will knock it down, some people go to Harbor Freight and buy the basic hand tools, screwdrivers, Kleins and stuff. Start off with some Craftsman stuff, work your way up. As you like to trade more, buy more. What you think, Josh?
I'm going to probably be a very minority person in this entire thing. I provide all the tools for everybody. All my vans are completely stocked.
I'm coming to work for you.
Sign me up.
The reason is, so each of my bags, so I've got all my tool bags are designed exactly identical. So all three of my vans, everything's in the exact same place, from top to bottom, inside and out. There's no thinking. All the nut drivers are in the same spot, the drills are in the same spot, the pliers, the needle nose, literally everything you can think of that you would need, identical location. Because if you jump from van 1 to van 3 and you have to relearn what happened the next day, that slows you down. So instead of making these guys spend all that money on tools, because I've had to, my son did, I talked to them. I started buying all the tools for everybody. Each of my vans are located with it. These guys don't have to spend their money. They just have to learn. They can spend more time learning than worrying about how am I going to afford to buy this tool or that tool, or how am I going to afford these probes that are $700 or whatever. I give them to them. They don't get to take them at the end of the day. So every guy that's ever left has never taken any of my tools. Now, do they lose them? Do they break them? Yes. You lose some every so often. You get a little bit of a grace, but after a while, you may be charged for one or two tools, depending on what it is. But yeah, I buy them all.
All right, so we're in Oklahoma. Where are you at? So I can Omaha, because I'm a quit where I'm at. I'm a see you Tuesday.
I got the work and need the help. Let's go.
What about you, Mac? What you got?
So I did a lot of I still do. I go to pawn shops a lot, and I go look for stuff. Look, it's just everybody that's in the trade hates that we have to spend money on tools. It's just part of the thing. You just have to. It is what it is. I go to pawn shops. I talk a lot of trash to the techs on the way out when they quit. And part of that is because I'm trying to find out if they're quitting the trade or if they're quitting the job. And every now and then you'll find one that's like, no, my dad's an electrician. I'm going to go, or not that. That's a little too close. But you find some guys who don't like HVAC and they're leaving. And so then my question becomes, hey, man, I'll give you whatever for your tools, right? That's not very polite to do to people. I realize that. But that's kind of how I come up on my tools, is buying from tradespeople that are out the trade or from pawn shops. And I don't really have a cost saving tip for you on that. It's expensive. I will tell you that if you can study and get yourself into the education part of it, that these manufacturers are a lot more willing to donate stuff to you or give you things for free in exchange for you using them in the classroom. But I ain't gonna lie to you, that took 7 years of getting my behind kicked before it got to that point. So
I'm
good
still
luck.
waiting for that setup.
Yeah, good luck.
I will say that I've got some manufacturers that sent stuff to school, and I took it to school and we used them in school.
Mhm.
I will say, like, we all know how much tools there are. My ex stepson, he got a job in the trade without me or his mom's help. His mom's been in the trade for until she moved. She's been in the trade for like almost 30 years or
Wow.
so at one company, but she was in the office, not in the field, but still in the trade.
Absolutely.
And but he got a job with another company on his own, and he's like, I don't have any tools. So I said, dude, meet me over here at the supply house. I took him to the supply house, bought a bag, and bought him $500 in tools, and said, here you go. Here's your basics for you to start off with. And that way, when he went to go work there, he walked in with a bag of tools, and they're like, "Where'd that come from?" He goes, "Well," he told him, "My stepdad, Jimmy." He goes, "Jimmy?" He goes, "Why does that name sound familiar?" And he goes, "Pork chop." He goes, "Oh, that's your stepdad." Then then it kind of be like, okay, so he should be able to know this stuff. Which no, not really, but still, it's I try to help him set him up for success with that. And from the last I heard, he is doing great working for another company. And this is where I wanted to go back to advice on entering text besides tools. The next question, residential or commercial?
Yes.
There's always the fight between the two.
There is, and I find it weird. It's like this male ego thing where you got to pick one. There's room for both, and in my mind, my viewpoint is you should be a technician. You should strive to be a technician that steps up and fixes anything, regardless of what it is. They both of the niches have their pros and cons, and right? Either or. And I will tell you that as far as our trade is concerned, a lot of guys will say that, oh, you make more money in commercial. No, the money's going to find you if you're good at what you do, period. Doesn't matter what market you are, what niche you work in. If you made me have to pick one, right? Because everybody loves to make everybody pick one. For me, and what I eventually evolved into in my career, yeah, residential is what I love because it got me to the point where I could start teaching consumers about why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it kind of planted the seed of what would become education kind of life. So I love doing that part of it and being different in that I'm there advocating for consumer and treating them with white glove service and teaching them so that they can teach the people in their Facebook groups, right? But don't get it wrong though. There's room for both in my opinion, and I've done both.
What about you, Josh? What's your thoughts?
So I came up in the residential world with very little light commercial or any type of commercial. Didn't do a lot of it. I mean, it was him by himself and then me on occasions. As I've taken over in the last 6 years, we've gone 800% increase in light commercial. I've gotten so much more business with it, but I absolutely love residential. But at the same time, like Max said, the light commercial is really nice because I'm educating business owners just like I'm educating residential homeowners, right? I can educate a restaurant owner on how to take care of her system and maintain her system just like I can a homeowner. A little bit different, but I've got a restaurant. This lady's changing their filters. They wash the outdoor unit. They take care of their units just like they would if they're at home. So I prefer I prefer residential because there's more of a You get more gratification out of it. The homeowners seem to give you a little bit more. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for?
Feedback.
Oh, yeah, they seem to appreciate the stuff more than light commercial. But the new times from when I was doing this before, the light commercial is changing. The owners are changing and taking the feedback and giving you more credit, and you see your means to an end, if you will. So you can see that artwork, like when you tear out a residential furnace, you can see that with the light commercial. Still makes you feel good.
Yep. See, I personally was, said I was residential light commercial. I personally love my residential over everything because I've enjoyed talking to that customer, because for me, I'm the first person that customer is going to see of my company. If it's a brand new customer, I'm the first face they're going to see, and how I present myself is how the company's presented. If I present myself to that customer as a well-spoken, acknowledgeable, understanding person to their needs and problems, they have a face they can rely on for that company. And I have a face with that customer I can understand and see as well. But with, that's where I like that aspect. But with commercial, you're talking to owners. You're not really seeing the owners of the property. You're talking on the phone. It's usually some corporate place out of state or something like that. So you just got to email them. And sometimes their tenants are waiting, like, when am I going to have AC? Like, we're waiting for the owner to approve the repairs, and you feel for them because sometimes it's days upon days when it's 100 degrees outside and they finally got back from their villa in the Italy or Florence or whatever. And like, oh yeah, go ahead and fix that. Really.
And that's true. I've come to notice some of these companies that I've started working with the last few years, I'm getting to the point where their owners, their bosses are just whatever I say goes. I just get to do it. I don't have to wait for permission. I don't have to wait for that NTE to be increased. I just tell the person, that my third party person, hey, this is what it's going to take. They say you've got to go ahead, and I roll with it. There's no waiting. And most of my owners that I deal with, though, are local. And I think Brian had talked about his commercial customers say, my guy's here. Man, that's no better. I love that feeling. I love going to these places, and they're like, my guy's here. I've got a building owner that does that every time I walk in. And that's walking in just to go grab lunch. I'm not there to fix anything. He just loves to see me show up, and I don't even have to fix anything for him.
Yeah, I've got a building owner like that too. Every time we have a new install going on thing where he's adding a complete new system, he tells them to put me on it because of how meticulous I am with the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm out there for service calls or maintenance, if I find something wrong, I call him and say, hey, this is what I got. He goes, what do you need to do? What do you want me to, what should I do? And I said, well, it's this old. You can spend this much money, or you just replace the stupid thing. He said, just replace it, Jimmy. Just go ahead and do it. Don't even bother sending me the quote. I'll pay for it later. Not a problem. Done.
Danny,
Does that person have like a
customers will feed you?
Hold on. What was that, Josh?
I said, Danny, even residential customers will feed you. I got residential customers make me food while I'm doing installs all the time, or we'll show up and they'll have cookies for us or whatever the case is. So it doesn't have to just be commercial. You can get some good eats on the residential people.
So last thing we're going to talk about is real life with techs, and we got a few minutes on that, but I'm going to say this. I don't know how it is in your areas. I know in my area and with the trade, we are not 9-to-5ers. We go in 7:30, and we get off whenever we're done for the day. Sometimes it might be 10, 12-hour days. Sometimes it might be 8. I know in my area, because Virginia's the way it is. There's a lot of people who just don't understand how our trade works, and with relationship wise. And I know I've seen families, real life, basically issues where people have been divorced because of our trade. I've seen fights happen, but I've also seen that come back through too. So, you have to have a love for the trade, and in my opinion, and you have to make sure you break the trade up and have family time. It can't be all work and no family. You have to make that family time in your trade because of the hours we work.
Yeah, I would. It's funny you bring that up. So, whatever that balance is for you, you need to find it and you need to make it a priority. Uh, I've made a deal with this trade when I was in the hospital with a severe injury from the trade. Uh, I am all HVAC. Nothing comes before it. Uh, so therefore, my relationships suffer. My family time suffers. Uh, I would venture to say that I'm probably a failure in every aspect of life, and HVAC is probably the only thing that I'm decent at. And I will tell you that if you are young and in the trade, don't do it this way. Don't do it that way. Okay. Uh, it's not a healthy thing. Uh, however, yeah, the hours you don't have hours set in stone, and you do work before the sun comes up, and you stay out after the sun goes down. Yeah, that's a way of playing it. I think it's an old, antiquated way of doing it, and unfortunately, that's how I came up in it. I don't know any other way to do it. I can only tell you that it's not healthy that you do it that way, because I live it every day, and sometimes, especially at this point today, I wish it wasn't that way, but it is what it is, right? There's
You know,
just
what about you, Josh? What do you think?
I'm old school. I am a workaholic. I am sun up, sun down. I have missed sporting events for kids because of the trade. A couple years ago, when my daughter was playing softball, said no more and started cutting hours back to go to her softball games and travel out of town with my wife and my daughter to go watch her play softball. Now that my kids are grown, I'm back to the putting in all the hours, but I let my guys go home if possible by 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock if possible. Because you're soft. I'm old school. I don't let every little thing somebody says bother me. So
Yeah.
I just work. I know how to put my head down and work. I want to be the best at this in my area, and that's all that matters to me. So I work like a tractor.
Yeah, there's a lot to go out there. I mean, I know for a fact we could probably talk for hours on entering the trades and all the things and different parts and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've all got lots of experience. I mean, there's so many people out here that are in the comments that got experience. There's people that we know that have got experience, and the best last piece of advice I could say is there's no such stupid thing as a stupid question when it comes to this, because you're always going to have to ask questions. 26 years in the industry, I'm still asking questions on certain things. I may do certain things with the company, but I don't know refrigeration. I got to call somebody. You know, we don't know everything, and we never will. When someone says they know everything, they're lying to you.
The only stupid question is the one that's not asked.
Yep.
I think your quality of life gets better when you start to realize that every person that's around you is somebody that you can learn from. I think your quality of life gets better when you start to look at the world that way.
Yep. So, guys, I want to say I appreciate you guys coming on. I'm happy to be. I was happy to be your host to help y'all get through this, and we should do it again and keep, go down this road even further.
Most definitely. Thanks.
Appreciate
it.
Thank everybody.
So, everyone, we'll see you next week for the new show, and everyone have a good one. Remember, Memorial Day weekend. Enjoy that paid holiday.
Be safe.
It doesn't come in until Tuesday, y'all.
Enjoy. Have a good one, everyone.
Later.